I think we all know people who, on the surface, they look like they have it all figured out.
Hmm.
Outwardly, they are hitting all the marks of professional success. They've got the accolades, the career is on the up and up. Maybe they even have the corner office.
Right.
But if you look a little closer, you start to see these deep cracks forming. They've met their career goals, but it's come at this agonizing cost to their personal health or their family life.
They wake up and realize they're strangers to their own kids.
Exactly.
Or maybe it's the person who's always struggling with their own goals.
Yeah.
You know the type. They decide to start exercising or eat healthy, and they get totally fired up.
Oh, yeah, they go to a seminar, walk out all jazzed up with a positive mental attitude.
And then, a few weeks later, motivation just fizzles out, and they're left with that same familiar feeling of failure. They just can't keep a promise to themselves.
And it's no different at work. I mean, think of the manager who's been to every leadership training imaginable. He's trying so hard to be friendly. He's using all the latest human relations techniques.
But he still has high turnover and just feels zero genuine loyalty from his team.
Or the executive who's just constantly swamped, always pressured, always hassled. She's tried, 4 different time management systems this year and still can't find that peaceful, productive life she's looking for.
These are not small things. They're deep, painful, really systemic problems.
Right.
And the source material we're looking at argues that these issues, they aren't about a lack of effort.
Right.
They're chronic symptoms of a superficial, quick-fix approach to life. Trying to solve them on the outside is like trying to cure a cold by just suppressing the cough.
So our mission for this deep dive is to explore the path to a lasting solution. And according to this framework, that demands a really profound internal shift.
It's what's called a principle-centered inside-out approach.
And the foundational idea is, it's simple, but it's also revolutionary. If you want to change your situation, you have to change yourself first.
And to do that effectively, you have to start by changing your deepest, most fundamental perceptions.
So let's start there. Let's look at how we even define success, because that's where the story really begins.
It's fascinating. The author did a study of all the American success literature published in 1776, and you see this huge ideological split happen right around the turn of the 20th century.
For the first, 150 years or so, the advice was dominated by something called the character ethic.
Right, the character ethic.
And this was the belief that real success, enduring success, and happiness, they're built on basic character traits. Things like integrity, humility, fidelity, courage, justice.
Patience, hard work, the golden rule. It was all about being internally sound. Success was built on what you are.
But then, right after World War I, something starts to change. The focus shifts to what's called the personality ethic.
And suddenly, it's all about personality, public image, specific attitudes and behaviors, skills and techniques. It moves from being to seeming.
And that's where we get the rise of all these human relations techniques. How to smile more effectively, how to use a power look.
Your attitude determines your altitude. All of that.
But why? Why did it shift so dramatically right then?
Well, a lot of things came together. The rise of mass communication, consumer culture. It created this powerful engine for instant gratification. The thinking was, if you can market a product quickly, why can't you market yourself?
Ah, okay.
The problem is, the personality ethic focuses on what we could call secondary greatness. So social recognition, talent, skills.
Without the foundation.
Exactly. Without a foundation of primary greatness, which is just goodness and strength of character.
But wait, things like positive mental attitude and communication skills, they do work sometimes, don't they? Are we saying they're useless?
Not useless.
Yeah.
But they are incomplete and, frankly, dangerous without that foundation.
Yeah.
If you try to use techniques, even good ones, but underneath you're insincere or duplicitous, people feel it.
They see it as manipulative.
They'll see it as manipulative because that's what it is. You're fundamentally trying to fake genuine character.
That really clarifies it. It's the difference between being sincerely interested in someone and just, using active listening tricks because a book told you to. One works, the other just feels hollow. And it fails.
And it fails because human systems are based on natural laws, like the law of the harvest. You reap what you sow.
You can't cram for the harvest.
You can't. You can't skip planting in the spring, play all summer, and then suddenly expect a huge harvest in the fall. There are just no shortcuts in character development.
To really understand why we fall for those quick fixes, we have to look at the lens we see the world through. The author calls this a paradigm.
Right. And a paradigm is more than just a point of view. It's a model, a theory, a deeply held assumption. It's how we see and interpret reality. You can think of them as maps.
Okay, maps.
But here's the crucial point. The map is not the territory. It's just an explanation of the territory.
And if your map is wrong, it doesn't matter how hard you work. I'm thinking of trying to navigate a big city like Chicago. If you accidentally grab a map of Detroit, you could drive faster, be more diligent, have a super positive attitude.
And you would only get to the wrong place faster.
Right. The first requirement is an accurate map, the right paradigm.
And we interpret everything through these mental maps, every relationship, every challenge. And the scary part is most of the time we don't even know they exist.
There's that famous perception test, right? The image that can be either a young woman or an old woman.
Yes. People look at the exact same data, the same black lines and white spaces, and they will sincerely, adamantly see two completely different realities.
And that's because of conditioning.
It's all conditioning. And this is the key insight. Our attitudes and behaviors, they flow directly from those unconscious assumptions. So trying to fix a behavior without examining the map underneath is just, it's a flawed approach.
But the real power comes from what's called a paradigm shift, that aha moment.
Yes, that instant where you suddenly see the picture in a completely new way.
Yeah.
It's not gradual, it's a sudden revisioning.
Like the shift from an Earth-centered universe to a sun-centered one. Everything about astronomy changed in an instant.
And personal shifts are just as dramatic. Think of the subway anecdote. A passenger's on a quiet subway car, and a man gets on with his kids.
And the kids are just out of control, loud, running around, disruptive. And the father is just sitting there, eyes closed, doing nothing.
You can feel the irritation building in the car.
Right.
Everyone is judging this guy.
Of course. So finally, someone can't take it anymore and says, "Sir, your children are really disturbing everyone. Could you please control them?"
And the man just looks up, kind of dazed, and says, "Oh, you're right. I guess I should. We just came from the hospital where their mother died about an hour ago. I don't know what to think, and I guess they don't know how to handle it either."
Wow.
And instantly,
Everything changes.
everything changes. The irritation doesn't need to be suppressed. It just vanishes. It's replaced by sympathy, by compassion. Your feelings and your behavior, they just follow automatically.
Because the vision changed, the paradigm shifted.
And that story shows that if you want a quantum change in your results, in your relationships, your productivity, anything, you have to work on the root.
You can't just hap at the leaves of behavior and attitude.
Exactly. And once your vision shifts, you need to ground that new perspective in reality. And that's where principles come in. This brings us to the principle-centered paradigm.
So what are these principles? Are we talking about values?
Not exactly. Principles are like natural laws in the human dimension. They're as real and unchangeable as gravity is in the physical dimension. You can't break them.
You can only break yourself against them.
Precisely. They're like lighthouses.
There's a great story about that. A battleship captain is navigating in heavy fog, sees a light and signals, "We're on a collision course. Advise you change course 20 degrees.
He's using his position, his power, to demand the other vessel move.
And the reply comes back, "Advisable for you to change course 20 degrees. So the captain is angry. He signals, "I'm a captain, change course 20 degrees. And then, "I'm a battleship, change course 20 degrees.
And the simple, final, unarguable reply is,
I'm a lighthouse."
the battleship had to change course. You can't argue with a lighthouse. And principles like fairness, integrity, human dignity, they are lighthouses.
So this helps clarify a really important distinction. Principles are the territory. They're objective. They're universal.
And values are our maps. They're subjective. And our values can be wrong. Our maps can be wrong.
A gang of thieves might value loyalty, but their value system is violating fundamental principles of honesty and respect.
Right. And their map is flawed. It's disconnected from reality, and long-term, it's going to lead to collapse.
Which brings us to the inside-out approach. It means we have to start by aligning our maps, our values, with the territory of principles.
You start first with yourself, with your paradigms, your character, your motives.
So private victories have to come before public victories.
They must. You have to be trustworthy before you can be trusted. You have to be a loving, disciplined parent to have a truly cooperative teenager. You can't use a quick fix trick to get your boss to trust you.
But that sounds like the long road. What happens when we try to shortcut that process?
Well, you end up in a situation like the birthday party story. A father sees his young daughter refusing to share her new presents.
He's embarrassed. Other parents are watching. He just wants the problem to go away.
So he tries a quick fix. He tries reasoning, then bribery. And when that doesn't work, he just uses force and authority to make her share the toys.
He got the result. The sharing happened.
He got the short-term result, yes, but he did it by borrowing strength from his position. And look at the chronic cost. Look at the damage to what we'll call production capability.
What's the cost?
It's huge. It builds weakness in him because he's relying on external force, not internal character. It builds weakness in the child who just learns to comply out of fear. And worst of all, it damages the relationship.
So any attempt to teach just feels like rejection.
It feels like rejection.
Yeah.
The father's own character flaw, his impatience, his need for a good outward appearance, that was the real problem.
So if the solution is changing character, that means we have to work on our habits. How are we defining a habit here?
A habit is where three things intersect. Knowledge, which is the what to do and the why. Skill, which is the how to do it. And desire, which is the want to do it.
You need all three.
You need all three. You can know you should save money. You can even know how to make a budget. But if you don't actually want to save, the habit will never stick.
And breaking old habits, building new ones, it takes this massive effort. The book calls it a liftoff effort.
Like launching Apollo 11. The incredible energy needed just to break free from Earth's gravity in those first few minutes. That's the kind of energy it takes to escape our old patterns.
And that effort is what moves us along something called the maturity continuum.
Right, which outlines our growth. We all start at dependence. That's the paradigm of you.
You take care of me. I blame you when things go wrong. It's the infant paradigm.
Then, through those private victories we talked about, we move to independence. The paradigm of I.
I can do it. I am responsible. I am self-reliant, which is a huge achievement.
A massive achievement. But it's not the ultimate goal. The highest level is interdependence. The paradigm of we.
We can do it. We can cooperate, combine our talents, and achieve so much more than we could alone.
And we have to stress the sequence here. You must be independent before you can be interdependent.
A dependent person can't choose to be interdependent.
No, they can't. They'll just become needy or manipulative. That's why the first few habits are all private victories. They are about self-mastery. They're the foundation for the public victories of teamwork and effective relationships.
And all of this, all these habits are aimed at one thing, achieving true effectiveness, which is defined by this central concept, the PPC balance.
The PPC balance, it stands for production balanced with production capability. And the easiest way to get it is through Aesop's fable of the goose and the golden egg.
Okay, so P, production, is the golden egg. That's the result you want, the income, the output.
And PC, production capability, is the goose, the asset itself, the capacity to produce those golden eggs.
So if the farmer gets greedy and focuses only on P, on the eggs, he kills the goose to get them all at once.
And he destroys the asset that produces the wealth. Effectiveness is keeping the goose healthy, the PC, while still getting the eggs, the P. It's a balance.
This applies to everything, doesn't it?
Everything. A physical asset like your lawnmower. If you run it full throttle every weekend for max output, max P, but you never do maintenance, never change the oil, which is the PC, you ruin the machine.
And financially, it's like confusing your principal with the interest. If you start spending the principal, the goose, to raise your standard of living, you're destroying your ability to produce future income.
But the deepest application is in human relationships. In a marriage, if you only focus on the golden eggs, the benefits you get from the relationship, and you neglect the relationship itself.
The goose.
The goose, you become insensitive, critical, the love, the spontaneity, it all just dies. You're killing the goose.
I'm thinking of organizations. The restaurant owner who waters down the famous clam chowder to increase his short-term profit.
That's a perfect example. He's grabbing for the golden eggs, the P, but he's destroying customer loyalty, the PC. And in the long run, the business dies because he didn't realize the relationship with the customer was the goose.
Or the executive who gets promoted for maximizing production.
Right. He gets the P, but he does it by running the machines into the ground and burning out his team. He leaves a broken machine and a demoralized staff, a sick goose for the next person.
You can buy someone's time, but you can't buy their heart and mind.
You cannot. PC work in a company means treating employees like volunteers who choose to give you their creativity and commitment, not like cogs in a machine.
So effectiveness is about balancing those two. It's not just getting a clean room from your kid. That's P.
Right. Yelling gets you the P. But it destroys the PC, the child's internal commitment. True effectiveness is building a relationship where the child is internally motivated to clean the room cheerfully without being told. That's the PPC balance.
The entire premise of this deep dive, then, it really comes back to that Einstein quote. The significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them.
And that is the whole argument for the inside-out approach.
Yeah.
If you want real quantum change, you have to stop hacking at the leaves, the attitudes and behaviors. You have to go to the root.
The flawed paradigms and the weak character that produce those bad outcomes.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, who's just taken all of this in?
The source material suggests a really powerful inside-out approach to learning itself.
Okay.
It suggests you immediately shift your role from learner to teacher. Your goal shouldn't be just to listen or read, but to share what you've learned, the character ethic, the PPC balance, with someone else within the next 48 hours.
That's a fantastic challenge. I mean, what difference would it make if you listened with the intent to teach it to someone else?
It forces a completely different level of engagement, doesn't it? You move from just passively absorbing it to actively mastering it.
It certainly does. Now, this journey, it takes patience. The growth is evolutionary, one habit, one paradigm shift at a time. But if you decide to open that gate of change, which Marilyn Ferguson said can only be opened from the inside, the net effect will be revolutionary.
You can expect more self-confidence, a stronger identity, more integrity, and just dramatically better relationships.
Not a quick fix, but it is the most priceless, lasting investment you can possibly make.
We'll come back to the deep dive. So many people are looking for that shortcut, right?
Yeah, the fast track.
The fastest path to some kind of meaningful personal improvement. And today, I think we're really delivering the blueprint.
We are. We're diving straight into the foundation of personal effectiveness, this concept known as the private victory.
And it's so interesting because it's a bit counterintuitive.
It really is. I mean, we're so conditioned to look for external answers. A new job, a better partner. If I just change my environment, then I'll be happy.
Right.
But the material we've gathered, it just clearly outlines these three foundational habits 1, 2, and 3, that argue, well, that true lasting change has to begin internally.
Self-mastery.
That's the whole game, the private victory.
Okay, so let's unpack this internal work, and the sources say we have to start with what is arguably the most remarkable thing about being human.
It really is. This is habit 1, be proactive, and it's all rooted in our self-awareness.
The ability to observe ourselves.
Exactly. It's this profound, uniquely human realization that we can actually stand apart from our moods, from our feelings, even our own thoughts, and just examine them.
So we aren't our thoughts. We're the thing that notices the thoughts.
Precisely. We are not fused to our reactions. And that little space, that gap between observation and your response, that's where all our power is.
But the analysis suggests most people just stuffed. They completely bypass this.
They do. They form their entire self-view from what's called the social mirror.
Which is what? The opinions of others.
The opinions, the perceptions, the expectations of everyone around you. And it's like looking into one of those carnival funhouse mirrors. The reflection you get back is disjointed and out of proportion.
And that traps us.
It traps us in what the source material calls the 3 main theories of determinism. These are basically the maps that the active people use to explain why they're not in control.
Okay, let's break those down. First is genetic determinism.
That's my grandfather was like this, it's just in my DNA, I have bad temper, can't help it.
Right. Then there's psychic determinism.
The blame your parents card. My childhood scripting made me this way.
And the last one, which this one feels very current. Environmental determinism.
Oh, it's the most popular excuse today. It's my boss, it's my spouse, it's the economy, it's the political situation.
It's always something out there.
It's always something out there.
Yeah.
All of them are based on this simple idea that stimulus dictates response, that we're just conditioned animals.
But then the material introduces this incredibly powerful counterargument, the story of Viktor Frankl.
Yes, a psychiatrist who was, funnily enough, a determinist himself, until he was imprisoned in the Nazi death camps.
The ultimate test of human liberty.
The ultimate test. I mean, he lost everything, his family, his work, his dignity, everything external was gone. But he found that his captors, they could control his body, but they could not control his inner self.
His response.
His response. He discovered what he called the last of the human freedoms, the freedom to choose how he would interpret and react to that torment.
And that's his core principle, right? Between stimulus and response, there's a space.
And in that space lies our power to choose. That is the definition of proactivity. It's responsibility. Our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions.
So proactive people, They carry their own weather. I love that phrase.
They really do, and you can hear it instantly in someone's language. Reactive language is always, he makes me so mad, or there's nothing I can do, I just don't have the time.
It's helpless.
It is, but proactive language, it takes ownership. I control my own feelings, or I will choose a different approach.
There's that anecdote about the nurse. I found that one really hit home. The one who felt her patient was making her miserable.
Yes, this miserable, ungrateful patient. And she has this breakthrough where she realizes the patient isn't making her do anything. She had actively chosen to let that negativity control her.
And when she saw her choice, she was free.
She was free to choose compassion instead. It's a bitter pill to swallow, realizing you're responsible for your own misery, but it's also total liberation.
Okay, so practically, how do we apply this? The sources give us the circle of influence.
Right. So imagine two circles. The big one is your circle of concern. It's everything you worry about but can't really control. Politics, the global economy.
Your coworkers' bad habits.
Exactly. Now, inside that is a smaller circle. That's your circle of influence. These are the things you can actually do something about.
And proactive people focus their energy there.
Entirely. They work on the things they can change. And that positive, focused energy actually causes their circle of influence to expand. Reactive people just complain about their concerns, and their influence shrinks.
Let me push back on that for a second, though. If my colleague is actively causing a crisis, a real problem that affects my work, and I just focus on my response, aren't I just, ignoring reality?
That's a great question. And it's a crucial distinction. You're not ignoring the crisis. You're changing your approach. You move from blaming my colleague is incompetent, which is in your circle of concern, to acting. What can I do to mitigate this? How can I prepare differently? That's in your circle of influence. The source material is so clear on this. If you think the problem is out there, that thought is the problem.
Because you just gave your power away?
You gave it away. You solve external problems by mastering your internal response first.
Fantastic. Okay. So habit 1 is realizing we have the steering wheel, we can choose, but now what? Where do we go? How do we choose the right destination?
And that leads us right into habit 2. Begin with the end in mind.
And the way in is, well, it's pretty unconventional. We have to plan our own funeral.
It's a powerful visualization. Imagine yourself, say, 3 years from now, attending your own funeral, and you see the speakers get up, a family member, a friend, a work colleague.
And you have to listen to what they say about you.
What would you want them to say?
Yeah.
About your character, your contributions. That exercise forces you to connect with your deepest, most fundamental values beyond money or status.
And that connects to the core principle of habit 2.
The two creations. All things are created twice. The first is the mental creation, the blueprint, the plan.
The second is the physical creation, the actual building of the house.
Exactly. And if your blueprint is flawed, making changes during the physical creation is incredibly expensive and difficult.
Yeah.
You have to design correctly first.
And if you don't do that first creation consciously, somebody else will do it for you.
Right. You'll just be living out their script, their expectations. Which brings up this critical difference between leadership and management.
Okay.
Leadership is the first creation. It's asking, what are the things I really want to accomplish? It's about doing the right things.
And management is the second creation.
Management is doing things right. How can I be more efficient, more productive?
The analogy in the book is just perfect for this, the group in the jungle.
Yes. Imagine these managers. They're in a jungle. They're incredibly efficient. They're sharpening their machetes, hitting their targets, making amazing progress, cutting through the undergrowth.
They're doing things right.
But the leader is the one who climbs the tallest tree, looks around, and yells down.
Wrong jungle.
Wrong jungle. All that efficiency is wasted if you're headed in the wrong direction.
So to ground our personal leadership, we need a personal mission statement.
It acts like a personal constitution. It's this changeless core based on solid principles that gives you security and guidance, especially when the world is changing so fast around you.
And the sources point out that most people don't have this. They center their lives on things that are really volatile.
So volatile.
Yeah.
Like being spouse-centered or money-centered or pleasure-centered.
Even enemy-centered.
Absolutely. And when your center is volatile, your whole life feels unstable. It messes with the 4 life support factors: your security, your guidance, your wisdom, and your power.
Can you give an example? Like, what happens if someone is totally money-centered? How does that limit their wisdom?
Well, if money is your center, your security is tied to your bank account. It goes up and down with the market. Your guidance system is just what's the most profitable move. And your wisdom gets warped because you view every relationship, every decision through an economic lens. Profit over people.
Which makes you vulnerable.
deeply vulnerable and defensive.
Yeah.
But if you shift to being principle-centered,
On things like integrity, fairness.
things that are timeless, they don't change, they don't have a bad day and betray you, they provide this solid, stable core that lets you see change as an opportunity, not a threat.
And to create this personal mission, we have to tap into the right side of our brain.
The creative, intuitive side, yes. We use tools like visualization and affirmation to literally re-script ourselves.
So you're consciously rewriting your own programming.
You are. Let's say your current script is to get angry when your kids misbehave. You write a new one. You visualize yourself staying calm, and you affirm something like, "It is deeply satisfying that I respond with wisdom, love, and self-control."
You're installing new software.
You're installing new, value-driven software.
Okay, so that leads us to habit 3. Put first things first. This is where the rubber meets the road.
This is the physical creation. It's the day-in, day-out discipline. It's that moment-by-moment practice of subordinating your feelings and impulses to your values.
It's doing what you said you would do.
Exactly. And the tool for this is the time management matrix.
Right, the 4 quadrants, urgent versus important.
You've got quadrant 1, urgent and important. These are your crises, your fires.
Yeah.
Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important. Most interruptions, other people's priorities. Quadrant 4 is just escapism. Not urgent, not important.
And the secret to everything, the core of effectiveness, is quadrant 2.
Quadrant 2, important but not urgent. This is relationship building, long-range planning, exercise, preventative maintenance, writing that mission statement we just talked about.
This is where effective people live.
They live there. They starve problems and they feed opportunities. They spend so much time in Q2 preventing things that they have far fewer Q1 crises to deal with.
So here's the question. If Q2 is so obviously important, why do so few people actually spend time there?
Because it isn't urgent. It doesn't scream at you. A phone ringing, that's a Q3 interruption. It demands an answer now. A crisis demands your attention now. Building a better relationship with your teenager. That can wait till tomorrow.
The tyranny of the urgent.
It is. We confuse what's urgent with what's important. And the real challenge of habit 3 is learning to say no.
To say yes to the important Q2 stuff, you have to say no to other things.
Even good things. Often the good in Q3 and Q4 is the enemy of the best in Q2.
So how do we structure this?
The key is to organize on a weekly basis, not just a daily to-do list. Daily lists just prioritize tasks. Weekly planning prioritizes your roles and your relationships.
Explain the role system. How does that work?
You start your week by identifying your key roles. For me, it might be individual, husband, father, professional, community member. Then for each role, you set 1 or 2 important Q2 goals for the week.
So it builds in balance. You're not just focusing on work goals.
You ensure that every single week, you're moving the needle on the things that matter most in every important area of your life. It connects your daily actions back to your mission.
Okay, and for managers, a huge part of this is delegation.
Huge. It's the leverage point. And we have to move away from what's called gopher delegation.
Go for this, do that, report back to me.
Exactly. Micromanagement. Supervising methods. It's exhausting, and it doesn't develop people. The goal is stewardship delegation.
Which is about trust and results.
Total trust.
Yeah.
It requires a really clear upfront agreement in 5 areas. You define the desired results, the what, not the how, the guidelines, the resources available, the accountability standards, and the consequences, both good and bad.
The example of delegating the yard work to the 7-year-old son is it's perfect.
It is. The principle was green and clean. That was the desired result. And yeah, it took time and patience up front to train him to set up that stewardship agreement.
But once it was done,
the boy owned it. He was in charge of the result, not just the method. And that's the insight. That initial investment of time in training and trust, it pays off with massive dividends in expanded capacity and, more importantly, in the other person's commitment and confidence.
trust is the highest form of human motivation.
It really is.
So we've done it. We've completed the private victory. We've established we're responsible for our choices with habit 1, proactivity.
I am the programmer.
Then we create a mission, a blueprint based on our values. With habit 2, begin with the end in mind.
I write the program.
And finally, we develop the discipline to execute that mission daily, prioritizing what's important. With habit 3, put first things first.
I run the program. It's a perfect sequence. You can't do habit 3 if you don't have habit 2. And you can't even start habit 2 until you truly accept habit 1. It's the foundation.
So we want to leave you with a challenge, something directly from the source material. It's the 30-day proactivity test.
For the next 30 days, make a commitment to work only within your circle of influence.
No criticizing, no blaming, no complaining. Be a model, not a critic.
Every single time you feel that urge to point a finger, just pause. Ask yourself, what is my proactive response here? What can I choose to do right now that's within my control?
And stop yourself every time you think the problem is out there, because that very thought,
Mm.
that is the problem.
So the question to leave you with is,
What foundational shift would happen in your life if for 30 days you lived as if you were truly 100% responsible for your choices and nothing else?
that's the challenge.
Until next time, keep digging deep into what truly matters. Welcome back to the deep dive. So last time we talked about building that powerful personal foundation.
Private victory.
Exactly, private victory. Today we're moving into something far messier, but I think ultimately far more rewarding.
Oh, for sure.
The whole world of human relationships and collaboration. This is public victory. We've pulled together a ton of sources on how we actually make that leap from being effective alone to, achieving real breakthroughs with other people.
And that leap, that transition, is really the key to this entire deep dive. Our whole mission here is to unpack these habits, but we have to start with the foundational law.
Which is?
Private victory must come before public victory. There's no two ways about it. It's not a suggestion. It's more like a prerequisite for life.
Right. Yeah.
Think of it like this. Algebra has to come before calculus.
You can't skip it. I see what you mean. If you try to jump over those steps of self-mastery, if you aren't governing yourself first, well, then any relationship is just two dependent people trying to lean on each other.
Exactly. And it just doesn't work. Attempts to jump straight into teamwork or, deep, trusting relationships, without that inner maturity, they just end in what our sources call broken fragments.
That's a powerful image.
The landscape is just littered with them. And while the potential for growth is, it's enormous, geometrically increased, they say, interdependence is also where we get our most intense, immediate stress.
That acute pain, you can be disorganized for years and just call it chronic disarray, whatever. But when a relationship problem hits, it's urgent.
It's right in your face. And when people are hurting, they look for the fastest possible fix.
Which brings us to that anecdote in the source material. The one about the man who was so worried because his wife was always grilling him on the phone.
Oh, yeah. He was obsessed with finding some kind of technique, some trick to stop her suspicions. And then, in this quiet moment, he just admits. He met his current wife at a similar seminar while he was married to someone else.
Wow. It's just devastating. And
Right.
the lesson from the material is so perfect. You can't talk your way out of problems you behave yourself into.
You just can't. It's a total failure of character integrity, and he's trying to mask it with a quick fix. And that's exactly why we have to start with the true foundation of trust.
The emotional bank account.
The emotional bank account.
Or EBA. I
Yeah.
always think of it as like the relational runway. It's how much margin you have to make mistakes or disagree safely.
That's a great way to put it. When the EBA is high, you've got this solid reserve. Communication is easy, small mistakes get forgiven because the trust is there.
Right. You won't be made an offender for a single word, as they say.
But if that account is overdrawn, then it's
No.
tension city. Everything becomes high stakes. Everything needs to be documented. The relationship just grinds down with friction.
And the sources are really clear that in constant relationships, like a marriage or with your kids' old deposits, just kind of evaporate.
They do.
You can't coast on a good deed you did 5 years ago. It needs constant small investments.
Constant investment is the price of admission. The sources lay out 6 major deposits, but let's just highlight 2 that really show how strategic this has to be. The first one is understanding the individual.
And this is the key, right? It unlocks all the others.
It really is. Because what feels like a deposit to me might be a total withdrawal for you.
Yeah.
We're always making the deposits we want to receive ourselves.
Not the ones the other person actually values.
Precisely. You have to subordinate your own agenda.
Oh.
I love that example of the father whose son was obsessed with baseball. The dad had zero interest, none. But he took 6 weeks off to travel the country so his son could see every major league team play.
That is a huge deposit.
Huge. And when someone asked him why he did it, he just said, I don't like baseball, but I like my son that much. It just completely affirmed the son's value system.
And it shows that level of character. But the second deposit is, much smaller scale, but it can be just as powerful, attending to the little things.
Yes, the small kindnesses are the big things. And the small discourtesies are enormous withdrawals.
The sources have that amazing story of the host's father. He's coming home, and he gently covers his younger son, Sean, who's sleeping in the cold car, just with his coat.
A totally unconscious act of love.
Right. But his older son, Stephen, was watching. And later, the boy is quiet, and the father asks him what's wrong. And Stephen just turns over, crying, and asks, Daddy, if I were cold, would you put your coat around me too?
Oh, that's powerful.
That one small moment of kindness to his brother just created this massive deposit of trust for Stephen in his dad and in his place in the whole family.
And you need that reserve in the EBA because withdrawals are going to happen. They're inevitable. And
Mhm.
when we mess up, the only recovery mechanism is a sincere apology.
But, and the sources really warn about this, it takes a great deal of character strength to apologize quickly and genuinely.
It does. If you're insecure, admitting you're wrong feels like admitting you're weak.
And the moment you start making excuses, hedging your bets, it's not a deposit anymore.
It's not. And here's the crucial part. Repeated, insincere apologies actually become withdrawals themselves. They prove you don't really intend to change.
Like the story of the son, David, who wouldn't forgive his father.
Yes. He just says, you did the same thing last week. The words were totally empty. The behavior hadn't changed.
So once we have that trust, that full EBA, then we can finally move into the philosophy of how we interact. And that's habit 4. Think win-win.
And this isn't just a tactic for negotiation. It's a whole mindset. It's rooted in what they call the abundance mentality.
Which is basically the idea that there's plenty to go around for everybody.
Exactly. One person's success doesn't mean another person has to fail. And this is often the hardest habit because most of us are just so deeply scripted in scarcity and competition from the time we're kids.
You see that scripting everywhere, especially in systems. That's the win-lose approach. It's authoritarian, it's based on leverage.
Totally.
I'm thinking of that executive who always talked about teamwork and cooperation, but every single Monday he would post a race to Bermuda chart.
Rewarding only the top manager with a vacation.
Exactly. The rhetoric was cooperation, but the reward system was pure win-lose. He was starving the very culture he claimed he wanted to build.
A perfect example of system misalignment. And then you have the other side of that coin, the other flawed mentality. Lose-win.
The nice guy approach.
Right. No standards, easily intimidated, gives in just to keep the peace. But this one feels really dangerous because those feelings don't just disappear.
No, they get buried.
They get buried alive.
Yeah.
And then they come out later in much uglier ways. Cynicism, disproportionate rage over some small thing, even psychosomatic illnesses. Lose-win isn't peace. It's just delayed conflict. Both win-lose and lose-win are positions of weakness.
So to get to a true win-win, you need a balance. What do the sources call that?
They call it maturity. It's this beautiful balance between courage, which is, expressing your own feelings and convictions, and consideration, which is a deep respect for the feelings and convictions of the other person.
You need both.
You can't have one without the other and get to win-win.
And when you have that high level of maturity, you can even aim for the highest form of this, which is win-win or no deal.
Meaning, if we just can't find a solution that works for both of us, we agree to disagree agreeably, we just walk away.
Now, I want to challenge that for a second. That sounds great in theory, but isn't that a privileged position? It feels easy to say no deal when you have all the leverage.
Right, but what if you're a small company and you're desperate for that contract?
That's where the long-term thinking comes in. The source material tells that story of the president of a small software company. He was struggling financially, but he still honored this principle.
Okay.
He had an $84,000 contract on the table, but the client's leadership changed, and they tried to renegotiate it into a clear win-lose, and he walked away. He chose integrity over the cash.
And what happened?
3 months later, that new leadership, they heard the story of how he walked away on principle. They were so impressed by his character that they called him back and offered him a $240,000 contract instead.
Wow. So he chose the long-term character deposit over the short-term fix, and it paid off geometrically.
That integrity is what sets the stage for how we actually get to win-win solutions, which is habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
And the core analogy here is so simple, but we ignore it all the time. Diagnose before you prescribe.
Right.
We joke about the optometrist who just hands over his own glasses and says, here, these work for me, just try harder. But we do that constantly in our conversations. We just jump in with advice before we even understand the problem.
We filter everything through our own life story. If I say I care about you, but every time you tell me about a problem, I just jump in with my own experience. I'm not really listening to you. I'm just preparing my reply.
You're listening with the intent to reply, not to understand. And that's the whole difference. The goal is empathic listening. Listening with the real intent to understand. To see the world through their frame of reference, not your own.
And doing that gives the other person what the sources call psychological air.
which, after physical survival, is the deepest human need. To be understood, to be validated. If I don't give you that air, you're not going to be receptive to a single thing I have to say.
And to give that air, we have to fight our own instincts. We jump in with our baggage, we evaluate, we probe, we advise, we interpret.
The four autobiographical responses.
Yeah.
And they just shut down communication because you're filtering their reality through your own story.
So how do we actually get past that instinct?
You have to practice. There's a four-stage skill progression, but the highest level is using both sides of your brain, the logical and the intuitive, to rephrase the content and reflect the feeling. That's when the other person finally feels heard.
That reflection is what opens the door for a transformation. I keep thinking about that story of the father and his son who just declares school is for the birds.
Right? And the father's first reaction is to lecture him, to give advice based on his own hard life.
Which just shuts the son down immediately. But then the father shifts. He starts using empathic listening, just reflecting the feeling. So you're frustrated with school and you don't see the point.
And the son just opens up, layer by layer. It wasn't about being lazy. The real problem was that he was reading at a fourth grade level, and school was just a source of daily humiliation for him.
It changes everything. The father turned a transactional moment, a lecture about grades, into a transformational opportunity to address a deep, painful need. And only then was the son ready to listen to his dad's advice.
Which brings us to the second half of the habit. Then to be understood. And the ancient Greeks knew how to do this. It's all about sequence. First, ethos, your character, your credibility, your EBA.
The trust you've built.
Second, pathos, your empathy, aligning with the feeling. And only then, third, do you bring in logos, the logic of your argument. If they don't trust you, the greatest logic in the world won't matter.
And that groundwork, the trust, the courage of win-win, the deep understanding, that's what prepares us for the crowning achievement of all this. Habit 6.
Synergize. Synergy. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It's the idea that 1 + 1 can equal 3 or 10 or 100. This is where we create genuinely new alternatives that didn't exist before we started talking.
And the essence of it is to value differences.
Which is so hard.
Yeah.
Because differences feel like a threat. They feel like confrontation. We're wired to look for common ground, not value the friction.
Exactly. We all suffer from a scarcity of data when we're just limited to our own experience. So when someone sees the world completely differently, the right response should be, good, you see it differently. Help me see what you see.
Instead of what we usually do, I think of that fable of the animal school, where they forced all the animals to conform to one curriculum. The duck had to learn to climb trees. It just eliminated all their natural strengths. Synergy demands we embrace the friction as creative fuel.
You can see this play out in, like, a classic relationship conflict, the vacation dilemma.
Okay.
The husband wants to go fishing for a week at some remote lake. The wife desperately needs to go visit her ailing mother who lives far away.
A compromise there would be miserable. That's win-lose or lose-win. They split up, or someone grudgingly goes along and resents it. That's a huge long-term withdrawal.
But if they use habits 4 and 5, if they trust each other and they truly understand the deep needs behind those wants, they can search for the third alternative.
Not a compromise on the line between them, but the apex of a new triangle.
A new synergistic solution. Maybe they find a cabin near a smaller lake only an hour from the mother. Maybe they get other family to come too and turn the visit into a big supportive event. They find a solution that actually meets both deep needs.
And what's really fascinating is how the sources connect synergy to this idea of force field analysis. Synergy doesn't work by just pushing harder on the driving forces. It works by unfreezing or transforming the restraining forces.
The emotional, illogical barriers.
Exactly. Those things that hold us back get transformed into new driving forces because now everyone shares a common, better goal that nobody even saw at the beginning.
It really is the ultimate expression of creative cooperation.
It's the moment you realize your differences are actually your greatest asset.
What a journey. From think win-win to seek first, understand, to synergize. And it's just so clear how much all three of them rely on that foundational work, on character, on independence. If that EBA is empty, none of this works.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
We started with the foundation, and we should probably end there too. Dag Hammarskjöld, the former UN Secretary General, he had this profound insight that really brings it all home. He said, "It is more noble to give yourself completely to one individual than to labor diligently for the salvation of the masses."
Wow. So building one deep, trusting relationship with a spouse or a child, that might actually take more genuine humility, more nobility of character than trying to run 1,000 external projects.
It does. It forces you to look inward. So the question for all of us is, which relationship in your life right now requires you to stop trying to manage the external world and instead to give yourself completely to that one individual? That is the real courageous work of interdependence. Okay, so let's just dive right in. There's this analogy, and I think it's one we can all probably relate to, maybe a little too painfully.
Oh, I think so.
You're out in the woods, you've been sawing this huge tree for hours, you're exhausted, you're getting nowhere, and your saw is just dull. And someone comes up and says, hey, why don't you take a break and sharpen that thing?
And the immediate reaction is, I don't have time. I'm too busy sawing.
Exactly. And that story, it just perfectly nails the paradox we're digging into today. This is all about what the source material calls the principles of balanced self-renewal. Habit 7, sharpen the saw.
And our mission here is to really understand that this isn't some luxury habit you do if you have a spare moment. It's the one that makes all the other ones even possible.
Right. If your tools are broken, you can't produce anything, and it boils down to this really fundamental idea. The most powerful investment you will ever make is in yourself.
It's what the sources call your personal PC, your production capability. And that renewal has to be balanced across, these 4 key dimensions of our nature: the physical, the spiritual, the mental, and the social emotional.
And what's so critical here is the timing. This is a classic quadrant 2 activity.
Important, but not urgent.
Exactly. Not urgent. So it's the first thing to get pushed aside when the quadrant I crises, the urgent stuff, starts yelling for attention.
And that's the whole point. Quadrant I acts on you. You have to proactively act on quadrant 2, or it never happens. You have to schedule it, commit to it, build it into your life.
I found it really interesting, too, that this isn't just one theory. You see these same 4 dimensions pop up everywhere. Like you have the philosopher Herb Shepherd or the runner George Sheehan. They all land on this same fundamental structure.
It confirms that these are, universal principles for being a healthy, effective human being.
Okay, so let's get into that first pair, starting with the physical dimension. This is the obvious one, right? Taking care of your body, food, rest, exercise.
And it tackles that huge paradigm, that lie we tell ourselves. I just don't have time to exercise.
And the source material just hits back so hard, it says, we don't have time not to.
That's the whole shift. Exercise isn't a time drain. It's an investment that pays you back in energy and efficiency all day long. And a good program doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs 3 things.
The first one is endurance.
Right, your aerobic work. Yeah. Running, biking, swimming, getting that heart rate up into the training zone. It's about building cardiovascular efficiency.
So it's not just about going for a walk. It's about intentional, focused effort for what? Maybe 30 minutes a few times a week?
Exactly. The second pillar is flexibility. Stretching, warming up before, cooling down after. It's crucial for preventing injury and maintaining a range of motion.
And the third is strength. So resistance exercises, calisthenics, weights, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and there's that great anecdote about the guy with a PhD in exercise physiology. He'd argue that almost all the benefit in strength training comes right at the very end.
Right before the muscle fiber gives out.
Yes, because that's when nature overcompensates and rebuilds it stronger. Now, while that's a powerful metaphor for, building patience or character,
the source material is clear that for general fitness, that no pain, no gain extreme isn't the point.
The essence is consistency. It's that daily decision. And that's where the real payoff is, because it's not just physical.
It's psychological. Every time you make and keep that promise to yourself to go for a run, you're building the muscles of habit 1, proactivity. You're building self-trust, integrity.
You're proving to yourself that you're in charge. And once you have that physical energy, well, where does it get its direction?
And that leads us straight into the spiritual dimension. This is the leadership part. This connects right back to habit 2, your personal vision, your core values.
It's your compass. And everyone renews this differently. For some, it's daily prayer or meditation. For others, it's getting lost in great music or literature.
We're just spending time in nature.
To really show the power of this, there's an amazing story about the writer Arthur Gordon. He was feeling completely empty, just totally burned out.
And his doctor, instead of pills, prescribes a day at the beach with 4 sealed envelopes.
Right. And the first one, open at 9 a.m., just says, listen carefully. So he does. He listens past the seagulls, past the waves, and finds this deep inner quiet
peace. And then at noon, the second one says, try reaching back. He's supposed to remember moments of pure joy from his past.
And it brings back this warmth, this feeling of certainty. But the 3 p.m. one, that's the tough one. It says, examine your motives.
Oof.
Yeah. And he has this huge realization that any motive centered on the self is just wrong. It
Right.
doesn't work. True fulfillment only comes from a motive of service.
And then the final one, at 6 p.m., gives him a way to let go. Write your worries on the sand.
He scratches them out with a shell and just walks away, letting the tide wash them clean. It's such a powerful process.
It really is. And it shouldn't feel like a chore. That reminds me of the Martin Luther quote.
I have so much to do today, I'll need to spend another hour on my knees.
That's the synthesis.
Hmm.
He saw spiritual renewal not as taking time, but as making time, as creating the power for everything else. But, I mean, that's the challenge today, right? With all the distractions, how do you even start?
It comes back to quadrant 2. You have to schedule it. A non-negotiable 10 minutes of reflection is worth more than an hour of mindless scrolling. It requires discipline, which actually brings us to the next dimension.
The mental dimension. And this is an area where I think a lot of us can atrophy pretty fast. You know, once formal schooling is over, the serious reading and writing can just stop.
And a vacuum is created, and what
Yeah.
fills it? Media. I mean, the stats are crazy. TV is on in most homes for 35, 45 hours a week. That's a full-time job.
So it's not about eliminating it, but about using habit 3, self-management, to be selective.
Yeah.
To choose things that actually feed your mind instead of just numbing it.
You have to be proactive about it. And there are some really high-leverage activities. First one is reading.
Yeah, the goal they suggest is incredible. Start with a book a month, then work up to a book a week. You're literally accessing the greatest minds in history.
It's the ultimate life hack. The second one is writing, not just for work, but like keeping a journal. The act of writing forces you to clarify your thinking.
You can't be fuzzy when you have to put it on paper. And the third is organizing and planning. Using your imagination, your visualization to design your week, your day.
It's exercise for the strategic part of your brain. And all three of these, the physical, spiritual, and mental, they get combined into this one cornerstone practice.
The daily private victory. The DPV.
Yes, the commitment to spend a minimum of 1 hour a day, every day for the rest of your life, working on these 3 dimensions. That 1 hour transforms all the other hours.
It's the source of your intrinsic security.
And that security is what you need for the last piece of the puzzle, the social-emotional dimension. This is about public victory, habits 4, 5, and 6. Cooperation, empathy, synergy.
And this one is different, right? It doesn't take separate time. It's something you exercise in your daily interactions.
Exactly. And the key to it is that inner security we just mentioned. It has to be real, earned through integrity. You can't just, psych yourself into peace of mind.
You have to do the work.
A huge part of this is understanding our power to script others. We're a social mirror. We reflect back to people who they are, and we can choose to reflect their potential, not just their past behavior.
You can use your imagination over your memory. That's such a powerful idea. And it's proven in that story about the computer mix-up in England.
Oh, it's a classic. The computer accidentally told teachers that a group of bright kids were dumb and a group of dumb kids were bright.
And that false script became the teacher's reality.
The results were just stunning. The supposedly bright kids who were suddenly treated as if they were slow, their IQ scores actually dropped.
And the dumb group, who were suddenly treated with high expectations and encouragement.
Their IQ scores shot up. The teacher's paradigm was the variable. When they believed the kids were smart, they changed their methods to reach them. The obstacle wasn't the kids, it was the teacher's own inflexibility.
Wow. Okay, so when you pull all 4 of these dimensions together, you start to see the synergy.
They're also interconnected. You improve your physical health, you become sharper mentally, you work on your spiritual core, you find you have more patience with people.
They build on each other. It's an upward spiral. And renewing your mind has this direct link to true financial security.
It's not about your job or your bank account. It's about your personal power to produce, your ability to think, learn, create, adapt. That's the real asset. No one can ever lay that off.
This is exactly what the Quadrant 2 manager understands. In that business scenario, they walk in on Monday to a desk piled high with urgent problems.
The Q1 manager just starts fighting fires, answering every email, handling every crisis personally.
But the Q2 manager thinks differently. Instead of doing the media budget themselves, they delegate it as completed staff work. They empower their team.
And that frees them up for the real long-term investments, like spending months training their assistant to handle 80% of the inbox. It's more work up front, but it creates massive leverage down the road.
They're building capability in their team, not just reacting. But making that kind of shift requires a deep internal change, an inside-out revolution.
And the author of the sources traces his own revolution back to one single idea he found in a library, that there is a gap, a space between stimulus and response.
Yeah, our growth, our happiness, everything depends on how we use that space to choose our response.
The most profound example of this was in his own marriage. He and his wife spent a year having these incredibly deep, vulnerable conversations while riding an old motorcycle.
And they had rules, right, to protect the openness. No probing, stop if it gets too painful.
And through that process, they finally resolved these long-standing nagging issues,
Yeah.
like the famous Frigidaire hang-up.
For years, his wife insisted they could only buy that one brand of appliance. It seemed completely irrational.
But when they finally got to the root of it, the real why, it had nothing to do with appliances.
It was about her father.
Exactly. Years ago, during a tough financial time, Frigidaire was the only company that gave her father the credit he needed to keep his business afloat. It saved his dignity.
So for her, the brand wasn't about a product. It was about loyalty, love, a hidden, tender value.
And once he understood that paradigm, the problem just dissolved. It was never about hacking at the leaves, the behavior. It was about nurturing the roots.
That brings us to maybe the most important purpose of all this renewal, becoming a transition person.
The idea that we have the power to stop negative scripts from being passed down through generations, to break the chain.
And that kind of change, as Anwar Sadat said, isn't about just changing your attitude. It's about changing the very fabric of our thought.
Which leads to the final concept, the upward spiral. Renewal is a constant process. You have to learn, commit, and do over and over. And you have to keep educating your conscience so your inner compass stays true.
So in the end, the effectiveness of your public life is just a direct result of the quality of your private life. That daily private victory is the foundation for everything else.
It's the continuous investment that pays perpetual dividends. And to build on that idea of becoming a transition person, if we can recognize and stop the negative scripts for our children, it raises a really interesting question for you, the listener.
What's that?
What one deeply ingrained positive principle, one that maybe you've just taken for granted your whole life, do you now realize you must intentionally affirm, protect, and actively pass on to the generations that follow you?
That is something truly worth sitting with. Thank you for sharing your source material with us and for diving deep into the power of sharpening the saw. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.